Hi, thank you all for joining us. This is Sciver, Hedgeye Industrials, and we are very happy today to have Angus Pacala here from Ouster to talk a little bit about his newly public company and the exciting stuff that they're doing. So, Angus, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jay. Happy to be here.
For those people who are joining us who don't know Ouster, maybe you could just give us the elevator pitch on your products, company, culture, as well as your strategic direction and why you guys came public.
Sure, yeah. So, stepping back, LiDAR is a critical sensing technology powering automation in every sector of our economy, from robots in factories to traffic lights to security systems to the cars that you and I are driving in the future. And in order to affect every aspect of the economy, LiDAR really needs to be high performing and affordable enough that manufacturers want to build it into their products. It really has to hit on those 2 points for it to be a viable technology, like all technologies, all sensing technologies or technologies in general. And so Ouster has a unique digital LiDAR technology that is the best approach to building LiDAR because it unlocks that affordability and high performance and ultimately the biggest TAM with the highest resolution, highest specs, and most affordable all-in cost as a result. And so today we outperform all other LiDAR products across a variety of metrics, whether it's the size, weight, and form factor of our products, where traditional analog LiDAR technology is large, complex, and clunky, and we're building the smallest devices on the market today, or the power efficiency per pixel, where we're 10x better than any other analog LiDAR on the market today. The all-weather performance, we supply sensors that are able to cold start in -40°C weather, operating in Siberian mines and in Scandinavia and across the world. And warranty. And we offer the only 2-year standard warranty for all our products across the industry. And so digital LiDAR is core to Ouster's vision for LiDAR ubiquity across the world. And critically, we're offering that high performance, that all-in set of capability at a price point that allows our customers to build LiDAR into their systems at scale and at an affordable price point that really brings this technology out of R&D and into production. So the result is our sensors today are the best fit for automotive, industrial, smart infrastructure, and robotics applications. Those are our 4 key markets. It's one of the unique aspects of Ouster is that we're able to touch on a multitude of verticals and use cases through the capability, affordability, and performance of a digital LiDAR technology. In automotive today, we're used in robotaxis across the world, robo-trucking fleets, and other SAE level 4 and 5 AV and level 1 and 3 ADAS systems to support things like highway autopilot, traffic jam assist, parking assist, and automatic pre-braking assistance. In industrials, we're used for automated guided vehicles, for intelligent forklifts, for autonomous mining, and automated gantry cranes and dockyards, port automation in general. In smart infrastructure, we're used put on poles for pedestrian safety, for better signaling of crosswalks, for last mile delivery, street cleaning, and factory automation. And robotics. We're used in warehouses for warehouse automation, and so on and so forth, and a number of forward-looking applications. And so Ouster's digital LiDAR is just is kind of uniquely positioned to drive the autonomy revolution across the world, not only in auto, not only in industrial, but really it's flexible enough to supply the entire market and ultimately tackle a much larger TAM. And that's the unique kind of combination at Ouster. It's diversified through its digital approach. We're also an incredibly efficient company. We've been able to design, produce, sell, manufacture, and ship our products significantly faster than our peers with a fraction of the capital and employees. And in terms of going public, Ouster is a high growth company. We're still in that growth stage. And SPACs are a great vehicle for companies like ours that have strong fundamentals. We have an established paying customer base of over 500 customers. We have significant revenue with positive gross margins and a well-established go-to-market strategy with clear product market fit across our major verticals. And so access to capital markets is a way to execute on all of those touch points more aggressively and more quickly. And so I couldn't be more pleased to have gone public through SPAC and be in the public markets.
Perfect. Maybe just the part of your process that we don't see is sort of when you're actually interacting with customers. So could you comment a bit on what your go-to-market strategy is? Basically, how do you pitch your systems versus, competitors like Velodyne or Luminar?
Yeah, and so you have to understand, so today, LiDAR is already generating hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue across each of our end markets. And so we are displacing existing technology from established players like some of the names you mentioned, namely Velodyne, who's been in the market for 15 years. But we're also establishing new greenfield applications through the enhanced capabilities or affordability of digital LiDAR technology over existing analog solutions. And so customers that have historically used analog LiDAR technology, see the benefits of our digital LiDAR over that technology, because we can offer much more affordability or higher performance and feature set. And that's a relatively easy sale. And we can also supply them with an improving roadmap over time because of our ability, the ability of our products to improve exponentially due to their CMOS technology scaling exponentially in capability with Moore's law, which really underpins all of our digital technology. And so for customers that are aware of LiDAR and have historically used it, they are able to see that exponentially improving product roadmap and align themselves with confidence with that in a way that analog technology really has never been there for them. When it comes to greenfield applications, we're displacing other sensing technologies like cameras or radar, where a LiDAR sensor can perform, for instance, at an intersection, where a camera or radar sensor may be trying to sense vehicles to more intelligently signal traffic lights. But a LiDAR sensor can do that more economically because fewer sensors can be used at an intersection and more performantly. So maybe more reliably, better at distinguishing a car from a truck, from a motorcycle, from a bicyclist, and better at distinguishing those and the intent of those objects in the scene, like the direction they are moving, the orientation of a number of pedestrians at a crosswalk, whether they're going right or left, and doing it all in all weather, in all lighting conditions, in a much more flexible set of scenarios. And so those are the benefits that we're communicating to those greenfield customers that are considering transitioning from a camera or radar heavy system to LiDAR. And so I think, ultimately we've managed to achieve kind of through that combination of converting and displacing existing analog solutions and establishing greenfield applications, we've been able to achieve more revenue and more customers than all of our competitors with a relatively lean sales team of only 12 people in the last 3 years. And we've been focused in large part on making sure that we're hitting the customer requirements of our sensors. There's a lot of detail work that goes into this to understand and have a maniacal focus on the specific feature sets of each one of our customer bases across those verticals. It's not just about getting to performance or affordability, but the unique aspects of a LiDAR sensor that are required to make it useful in an intelligent traffic system, putting it on a light post or a traffic post versus putting it in the bumper of a car versus deploying it on a drone for 3D mapping. And so we combine that maniacal focus on the product needs of the customer. And I think that owes a lot to our success as well.
Well, I think one of the things that can be difficult from the outside is that a lot of the specs for different LiDAR systems kind of seem similar between you and your competitors. What are those specific factors or specific differentiators that you're alluding to there that drive LiDAR hardware selection for customers?
So, I think you're referring, so when people talk about specs in LiDAR, a lot of times they're thinking about the point cloud performance. And the point cloud is the raw data, that 3D scene that a LiDAR sensor outputs. And while point cloud performance is absolutely critical to achieve good quality data, like resolution and range and precision and accuracy of those 3D points, it's relatively table stakes in moving from pilot and R&D stage to production, to a production deal with customers. And at that next level of selection, when a customer is ready and says the performance of a point cloud is good enough, it's all about the practical considerations that go well beyond the point cloud specs. Things like the form factor, the reliability, the cost of the sensor, the functional safety certifications and industry-specific certifications of those sensors. Those are just as important as the raw sensor performance, which really is the focus of any kind of pilot or R&D stage selection. And so moving from R&D to production is about practical detail work. And it's also about selecting a company that our customers can rely on for the next X number of years, sometimes 5 to 10 year long production cycles. And so we focus on all of that upstream specification work. Aside from the point cloud performance, again, you have to play in this industry, you have to have good quality data. And digital lidar can produce the best quality data in the industry today. But to win production, it's all about those other things: form factor, performance, reliability, warranties, liability, indemnification, and the trust in a company long term, since these are 5 to 10 year production contracts.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic you bring up with the contracts. How sticky are those system selection decisions? And what are the switching costs if you have, say, a mining truck maker that wants to swap to a different LiDAR system? Is that even feasible?
Yeah, and so I'd say LiDAR is incredibly sticky. It's a unique technology because it's so commonly used in critical safety applications, whether it's used to drive your vehicle or drive a big 18-wheeler, big rig on the road, or to move and keep a gantry crane from crashing into some obstacles at a work site or at a dockyard. In all of those scenarios, the risk of malfunction, the risk of something going wrong in a system that is automated through our LiDAR sensors or through any LiDAR sensor are so big that that our customers, while there's significant certification across all of our key verticals, automotive, robotics, industrials, or smart infrastructure, there are critical certifications that must be met in order for those systems to be deployed at scale. And that certification process is multiple years in length across all of our verticals. And it's actually up to a combination, a working relationship between Ouster and our customer base to achieve those certifications for each specific use case. And that's effort that we both put in, we both invest in, but then the benefit is a certified product that is incredibly difficult to displace, and commonly a 5 to 10 year production life cycle for that application before a manufacturer is even considering switching to a new technology. And so again, it's not just about the performance, which here, digital lidar is improving faster, more exponentially faster, more than faster than any other analog technology on the market, and we can create kind of stickiness that way because our customers see our products improving year after year after year through hardware refreshes, through over-the-air software updates. But it's also this long-term customer relationship that we have built and that we have invested in, and the certifications that are keeping our products in our customers' deployments long-term. And that's where the first mover advantage, I think, comes in. We have more customers than our peers by orders of magnitude at this point, over 500 customers today. And that first mover advantage allows us to invest in all of those customers, lock them all into production level contracts, and have confidence that they will be around for the next five plus years.
No, that's great. Makes a lot of sense. Well, one of the concerns is that you could see a larger sensor company or a larger technology company show up and try and compete. What are the barriers to potential new entrants that wanted to come in and compete in LiDAR systems? What kind of integrations do you have with, say, NVIDIA or other platforms that can help stabilize the competitive environment?
Well, I think the first thing here is that, I'm confident that digital LiDAR is the future for LiDAR, and that analog technologies that exist today are not going to be relevant in the next couple of years. I think that's the precedent that has been set by digital CMOS technology for over half a century. And so we have confidence that, and there's precedent for digital companies to kind of retain a first mover advantage for a variety of reasons in the industries that they enter. And Ouster being the first mover in this space, we've been able to capture a very broad patent portfolio of fundamental kind of greenfield patents around this technology set that I do think create the basis for all of the protection that we have against newcomers in the space. But I do expect, if we look out 5 or 10 years, we're not going to be competing with other large companies trying to build competitive analog products. We're going to be competing with companies that are trying to build versions of a digital LiDAR product. And so we have to prevent that through patent portfolios, through our patent portfolio, which today is already 30 patents wide, with over 100 pending worldwide, filed broadly internationally across 17 countries, and combine that with an incredibly aggressive product roadmap. Because there's also precedent in CMOS digital technologies to maintain a multi-year lead just through the long time duration of product cycles in digital semiconductors. It takes between 2 and 3 years to go from concept to new chip generation in digital CMOS. And that's a multi-year lead that a first mover can maintain for years and years because of the institutional know-how and design inertia required to develop these chips. And you see that with companies like NVIDIA, which you mentioned, which can stay ahead in GPUs more or less indefinitely for the last 30 years, just because of an aggressive roadmap and the institutional know-how of delivering these complex chips. And so that same dynamic holds true for Ouster as well. So it's really a combination of aggressiveness in development combined with a first mover advantage and a very broad set of foundational patents.
When I think about LiDAR, I think about how much sort of, green space there is for the technology and ubiquitous sensing and ideas like that to expand. How much of your pipeline development efforts, those salespeople and your own efforts to generate business are kind of push, like actively seeking to expand market opportunities for LiDAR systems, pushing into new territory, not just autonomous vehicles or some of the more recognized areas, versus pitching those, existing LiDAR requirements? And is it an extra hurdle to really create new markets for yourselves as a first mover?
Yeah, and there's always a push and a pull for an emerging technology like this. But I think there's an immense pull right now from our customer base. There's been 15 years of kind of R&D work with analog LiDAR systems that were not affordable enough or performant enough, but showed the promise of LiDAR sensing across a variety of different end verticals. And we are now at a point where with digital LiDAR, we can supply affordable sensors that turn R&D products into production products, things that finally can move out of the lab and be deployed at scale and actually affect our lives out in the real world. And so there's an immense pull from our customer base, and it's one that we have, I think even as a company, we've struggled to meet the demand, the inbound pull demand, customers that have a voracious appetite for actually pulling R&D work into production. You can see this with companies like Plus AI, where we inked a deal. Plus is a major robot trucking operator, and they've been around since about 2015, 2016, working on deploying this robot trucking technology, automation, level 4, SE level 4 automation. And we recently inked a deal for a 2,000 unit binding order about a month ago for them to finally do their first major production ramp of this technology. And it was through a combination of digital LiDAR's improved performance and reliability and functional safety capability that they were able to move to 1,000 truck deployment with a digital LiDAR sensor. And So I think that pull is we're meeting the demand from that pull through, again, all of those important touch points past just raw performance, to allow companies to move into production. But there is also this push from us, and that's where I think the SPAC capital really can come into play. Is we are able to now, we have the resources to expand our sales team, expand our go-to-market into greenfield applications, things like smart infrastructure, where traditionally it's been camera or radar dominated markets, where we can now go out and communicate the value that a LiDAR sensor can provide in a smart infrastructure deployment, like building smart traffic signaling lights or smart crosswalks, and show how a LiDAR sensor is a more performant and affordable sensor for a new set of customers, like traffic infrastructure customers. So I'm incredibly excited about that, and I think that there's significantly more market to be built around the push, but it's obviously there's more investment required to build that side of the market, but it's one that we now have the resources to go out and build.
No, I think one of the things that I wonder about is how mature LiDAR adoption is within the broader economy, that sort of ubiquitous sensing framework. I know you've compared it to cameras, but I guess one level of that is, what is the cost difference between what you're putting out in digital, where you will be, and where some of the legacy competitors were? And what are the largest use cases that lower price point opens for penetration?
Yeah, so we are, I think we're at the very beginning of the LiDAR adoption curve. This is like 2004 for digital cameras. Truly, we're at the absolute beginning. And so the premise here, LiDAR is a fundamental sensing technology that is going to be widespread, ubiquitous, used across basically every use case where sensing is required. And there's camera and radar today is an opportunity to augment or displace with a high performing, affordable digital LiDAR sensor at some point in the future, whether it's now or 5 or 10 years from now. And so I really believe we're at the very beginning, 2004 for digital cameras. And since 2004, digital camera TAMs have exploded by over 200x, just to give an example of where I believe this is going. And so, but even today, I think what's critical is that we've broken through the affordability barrier for customers that are using kind of high grade camera and radar systems. So I keep coming back to smart infrastructure because it's kind of such an exciting emerging market where there's an obvious need for advanced high performance sensing to signal crosswalks and things like that. And where we are able to show the economic benefit today because of how affordable our LiDAR sensors have become. And as a concrete example, we're able to displace a traffic signaling system that's measuring and estimating where vehicles are stopped at an intersection that traditionally might use 4 to 10 camera sensors, and replace that with 1 or 2 digital LiDAR sensors and save significant cost in the upfront hardware and installation cost and maintenance cost of the system, but also provide superior performance, where we're able to classify a multitude of different types of vehicles in all weather environments, and also estimate their velocities, the movement through physical space to provide a better signal for signaling lights in that application. And so that's kind of, that's repeated across many of our customers, where we're able to just directly show that the costs of a high grade camera system are no longer competitive with the costs of a more elegant or a simplified LiDAR system.
It seems like very often LiDAR gives you the answer you were trying to get, by modifying a camera image, right? You just can go and get the answer directly, or you can go through all this other stuff to try and get it from a camera. But, just shifting gears, you mentioned infrastructure, and the Biden administration is embarking on this transformative infrastructure program. Have you had any discussion with policymakers about how automation, smart cities, factory investment could drive a wave of sensor adoption in these various markets, like easing traffic congestion, smarter industrial infrastructure. It seems like everyone is very focused on self-driving cars and maybe missing the $2.7 trillion infrastructure plan that's been proposed in the US.
Yeah, I think we're excited about that infrastructure plan at Ouster. I mean, it makes sense. We should be building modern infrastructure. If we're gonna revise and enhance our infrastructure, it should be modern. It should be adopting the best technologies that are available. I truly think that digital lidar is going to be a core component of any revitalization of this country's infrastructure, given the benefits that I've laid out in terms of literally it just being more affordable, but also providing unique new capabilities. It can provide safer roadways than we've ever had before, through better sensing, through the ability to actually sense in all weather environments. So we can create safer roadways, whether highways, whether it's intersections. There's just kind of obvious benefits to adopting this technology over previous. And so, yeah, I think we're incredibly excited by kind of that push towards advanced and intelligent infrastructure, and digital lidar is going to play a core component to that. But it's also going to impact the industrial and robotics markets too, which are kind of peripherally associated with this. I think we're really at the tipping point of the autonomy revolution, where there's massive commercial attention and potential across all of our markets to revitalize legacy industries in the same way this infrastructure bill is revitalizing infrastructure. But really, autonomy is revitalizing a host of legacy industries with this new autonomy technology, where lidar is truly the critical sensing need of those autonomy systems. And so we're seeing the same kind of excitement across our customer bases, from mining customers, from gantry cranes, from forklifts, from last mile delivery, intelligent machines that can interact with the real world in safe ways that make our lives safer and more efficient is core to the vision that we're pushing forward with digital lidar.
I think it makes a lot of sense as we build back better or whatever we're going to be doing to have a smarter infrastructure in place. Let's shift to a more sensitive topic, if you don't mind, which is, at least for some people here, more sensitive. Why do you think Ouster shares haven't performed as well? I mean, you have a great story to tell. I thought your investor day was very good. We're not nice about that kind of thing. So it's, it was good. There was nothing wrong with it, certainly. Maybe it was a little long, but you went through a lot of detail. You had the functioning system right next to you. That's all the stuff that should be good. Like, I guess the question I'm really asking is, what are the difficult investor calls like? Like, what is it that you're hearing from investors? Or is it just the SPAC thing that there's a little bit of a SPAC revulsion in place?
Yeah, and first of all, we have our investor day, or our first earnings call on May 6th, and I encourage everyone to tune into that. I think that our team internally has been incredibly excited about going public. I think it's absolutely the right call for Ouster. And again, we have kind of this established business. We have great product market fit. We have great technology. We have an exponential roadmap, and we have the capital now to go out and tackle that. We really believe in our core strategy as a company. But it is a different strategy slightly than our peers. And so I think there's an education that has to happen that me and our CFO, Anna, have spent a huge amount of time on to educate investors about Ouster's particular vision for this future, which again is a different one than I think the investors have heard and analysts have heard for the last 5 years. Really, the lidar has been synonymous with automotive, with robotaxis, and not with an autonomy revolution that spans industries. And so I think that education is just something that takes some time, and that we're committed to. And so I think we've always biased towards transparency, openness, and perhaps a little long-winded presentations like our analyst day, to make sure that the investment community has all the information required to really understand Ouster's business. So I think that it's just that we're we did this whole process quite quickly, and it takes a little time to actually educate a market and absorb the kind of diversified digital approach that we've made in this industry. That's somewhat different than the 5-year long story that everyone's heard about the exclusive automotive opportunity in LiDAR.
That makes a huge amount of sense. I think, from the investor perspective, sometimes it's hard to differentiate companies with real products, real businesses, real competitive advantages that can really use the capital to disrupt something from people who are, rolling things down hills or whatever. And it's just hard.
I would absolutely, and I would say this is a challenging industry to make heads or tails of because of the number of companies and the diversity of technology in the industry. And so I always fall back on the fact that Ouster has this incredibly diversified customer base that is real today, buying products with positive gross margins today, and all founded on a digital technology set that has a proven track record for literally a half century on dominating every last industry that it's entered. And so, but I think that can be such a shocking story almost to hear that it takes a little time to absorb.
Okay, so turning to another sensitive topic here. So this is one that comes in from the field, which is, do Tesla cars on autopilot hit emergency vehicles at abnormally high frequencies? Which you may not want to answer, but is it possible that a camera-only system can be blinded in hazardous ways by bright lights or bad weather? And why do you suppose some industry participants are so adamant about vision-only systems when human drivers obviously have senses beyond vision for driving, whether it's hearing, road feel, memory of the road, or the ability to differentiate a billboard from a stop sign or 9 other things? Like, can you sort of address the issues around camera-only ADAS and autonomy systems?
Sure. Yeah. I don't think I have the data to know whether autopilot hits emergency vehicles more often than others. But it's certainly, I've read a number of news articles exclusively about autopilot hitting stop vehicles in the left lane. But to the question, I mean, it is absolutely possible for any sensor to be blinded. Cameras can be blinded very easily if this speck of dirt on a camera blinds a camera. It's just as simple as that. Significant ice on a radar system blinds the radar. And dirt can blind a LiDAR sensor. And so the key here is redundancy and safety critical technology. The auto industry has figured this out, and they've been doing it for a century. They've figured out that redundancy is key to making us safe. That's why you have anti-lock brakes and electronic stability control and seat belts and airbags. And now, pre-crash braking with radar and camera systems, and moving to level 3 systems with LiDAR. Redundancy is the name of the game for automation and specifically in the automotive environment. And so there's really no limit to how safe you can build a self-driving car, meaning you want more and more sensor redundancy. And LiDAR is just another component in that mix. And so Tesla has not decided to move forward with LiDAR simply because there's no economical LiDAR sensors on the market to do that. There are no analog technology can't do it. It's been too expensive for the last 10 years since the Model S was released to have LiDAR sensors on the vehicle. And so, we're in the position now with our digital LiDAR suite to provide that affordable solution so that you can have not just a single LiDAR sensor on your vehicle, but a suite of LiDAR sensors that fully cover the vehicle and create redundancy of sensing in 360 degrees everywhere there's a camera on a vehicle today. And that's what's really critical, is complete redundancy of sensing technologies for the camera, the radar, and the LiDAR on every automobile that's made at some point in the future, so that you truly can fall asleep in your car and know that no single point of failure is going to lead you to crash into an emergency vehicle stopped on the side of the road. That's the core kind of thing that is going to allow people to really have confidence in the technology. Just like you have confidence in falling asleep in a plane because there's a pilot, there's a co-pilot, there's an autopilot system. That autopilot system is based on redundant sensor readings. Redundancy is what consumers really want and what society pushes for to create safe systems.
I think it makes a huge amount of sense. It gives you the exact answer you want. What's around me and how's it moving, right? It's a very direct question or answer that you get from a LiDAR system.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then so to that billboard example, that's the exactly. You can take away. It's not just redundancy of the sensors malfunctioning, which is a real concern. You want to make sure that you have redundancy so that if there's a true glitch in the system from a hardware perspective, that it's okay. But it's also data redundancy, because you're right, cameras can be tricked. An overturned white truck on the highway looks like the white sky, and sometimes a camera system might not be able to distinguish the two. Whereas a LiDAR system, it's clear as day that there's a huge wall in front of you if there's an overturned truck on the road, right? And so LiDAR has that unique benefit of giving you very, very accurate data. That's exactly what you want to know, which is the 3D structure of the environment, so you don't run into things.
One of the things that can be very important inside of a young and innovative company, which I'd like to think our company is still and was for a number of years, is the culture. Like how, people feel, motivated, and how you develop talent, how you attract the best people in an industry to work with Ouster. How do you think about culture development? How do you attract and retain the best people? What is like your ideal internal culture and framing of that?
We could throw away everything else about Ouster, but I think we can win the industry. And I've really focused on this, and my co-founder Mark has as well, attracting the absolute best talent in Silicon Valley. And I think we've done that. And I think it's evident in the fact that we are half the size or less than half the size of almost all of our peers. And yet we have more revenue, more customers, more products shipped, and done it all far faster than our peers, shipping our first digital products in 2018. And so, I think first and foremost, Ouster is an exciting company to work for because it's an ability to see into the future. The customers that we're serving, over 500 customers at this point, are building the next generation of technology, of automation technology, and our employees get to see that future emerging in real time before anyone else in the world. We get to see how the industrial market is automating mining machines and using these products in all these kind of diverse settings across the world. We get to see how automakers are incorporating our sensors into cars, into trucks. And we get to see how the entire logistical supply chain of the world using our sensors to create safer, more reliable, and more efficient systems. That's all work that our employees get to see before the rest of the world. And it's unique to Ouster because we have gone after this diversified approach. And so I think for anyone that is interested in technology trends and technology in general, that alone is motivation to come here and to work at Ouster. And so I think we have a lot of inbound interest as a result, and an ability to pick and choose the best employees. Aside from that, I think that I focus on just empowering our employees to make sure that they are the ones that are making the decisions that are driving the value at Ouster. So long as there's a culture of doing what's right for the customer from day one. If you have a culture of high-performing people that are focused on making sure you're doing what's right for the customer, then you can allow them to make decisions more autonomously than at a company that doesn't have that focus on the customer. And so we've done that. And I think, again, the fact that we are almost half the size of many of our peers, but still, kind of leading this industry in this push, is evidence of that employee empowerment. And that extends beyond, it's not just engineering, and it's not just sales. It extends across the entire company, kind of instilling that culture of accountability and autonomy.
That's great. Yeah, we always think of it as like, if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, you probably are in the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask a different kind of questions along that lines, which is, what advice would you have for other innovative companies that are young and growing, or other innovative companies that are approached as SPAC targets? And how did that going through the process impact your business and how you think about the business?
Well, like I said, SPACs can be a great vehicle for the right type of company, one that has strong fundamentals, I think. You have to go into this thinking about the long term. Think about the long term. Once you're public, you can't kind of repeal that decision, and you want to make sure that you're ready for it. So a clearly thought out strategy and sound fundamentals, meaning paying customers, revenue, positive margins, a go-to-market strategy that's being executed, not being figured out, product market fit that's established, not still being figured out. That's all really important so that those don't become immediate questions for your business when you're out in market, right? There may be volatility in a stock, but you don't want to be questioning those fundamental principles that you have about your business in that kind of environment. You just want to be executing on the strategy that you have confidence in and communicating that to the market. So I would focus on that, and you know, it's if you're not quite there, then maybe don't go the SPAC route.
Seems reasonable. When you think about the biggest potential vulnerabilities you would face, either from your perspective or a shareholder perspective, what are they? What is it that keeps you up at night, if anything, other than maybe a pandemic virus or, you know, Elon Musk? But what are sort of your concerns as you think out over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. Despite the pandemic, we had massive growth last year, which I think just kind of drives home the idea that we are operating in industries that are counter-cyclical in nature. We had many use cases that expanded as a result of the pandemic. And so I think one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is just the monumental growth that we have in our forecasts. It puts a strain on any company. We have to completely revolutionize or change the internal processes that we have to serve customers, to farm customers, to support customers, and to build products and you know, have a much more diversified and complex product offering in the market, and support customers as they go into increasing volume. So there's a real challenge of just up-leveling the company from where we are today to where we're going. A multi-billion-dollar company in our forecast that we've put out in the past. And so that's where I focus my efforts. That's where I'm concerned. We have to maintain that internal culture of accountability, but we also have to ensure that we can scale and have hierarchy that allows us to be an international company that serves, you know, 50 different countries, 3 major markets, ideally thousands of customers, not just 500. And so that's all a challenge that's kind of a next frontier for Ouster that I think about constantly. And the other is just continuing to educate this market. You know, Ouster's story is far from complete. You know, we have a great strategy, and it's a major focus of our CFO Anna and my kind of responsibilities to educate investors and analysts about where we're going. But that's something that never stops, and I think that there's another frontier beyond just kind of dominating digital LiDAR as a hardware technology, but really betting on autonomy and the solutions that we can build to actually bring autonomy to the entire industrialized world. And so when I step back, you know, I really think of Ouster as it's like an index fund for autonomy, and we need to help capital markets understand that Ouster is automating the world and see that future. And so that obviously is something that I spend a huge amount of time with analysts and investors communicating.
Well, that's great. I mean, scaling growth can be a genuine challenge, but it's a good challenge to have. Thank you so much for joining us. We're at 45 minutes, so we'll let you get back to changing, developing the future of autonomy and changing the world of sensing. Thank you so much. And if we can be of any help to you going forward, let us know.
Thanks so much, Jay.